Before we get into this, I don't want Studio Investigrave to see this. I hate that I have to say this, but we live in an era where the barrier between artist and fan has been eroded so severely that any critique of a work that's creator has an open ask box on Tumblr is bound to be sent them. Parasociality has created this, and someone probably already sent it to them. Hi, Studio Investigrave. Please could you just give me this and close the tab? The only way I feel comfortable expressing my opinion on this is by clinging to the vain hope you won't hate me for it. Cool, thanks. Throughout this video, I'll be making assumptions about the offer's intent, so this is the big asterisk. I don't know what the offer's intent was. These are simply assumptions that I have made based on the text and some posts made by Rachel Draws This. The offer's intent is unknowable, and even if we ask, we can never know for sure. I will analyse the information as it is presented and how I understand it. I played Dead to Play for the first time in May 2024. At the time, I struggled for words to describe what I thought of the game. Like everyone else, I love homoerotic cannibalism. I love cannibalism as a metaphor for queer love, but more than that, I just love the rawness of it. Dead Play ended up on my radar because of the cannibalism. I'd love to preface that with homoerotic, but there's quite frankly nothing homoerotic about the cannibalism in Dead Play. Rachel says the game doesn't have any shitbait, and I may disagree with him on that, but here I will present it as her word. The things I personally interpreted as homoerotic were my brain writing fan fiction with sexy cannibal content. These sorts of statements are what I really want to talk about though. My appeal to Rachel, where I promise not to stray from the path he defined, my plea for Studio Investigrave to look away when I may say something that upsets them, I'm scared they might not appreciate this, and that people will disagree. I'm scared of being perceived, much like everyone else on the internet. I avoided talking about Dead Play beyond closed doors and private accounts, all marked by me insisting everything I had to say was mere speculation. I needed to be unjudged. I needed the masses, those I can't call friends, but I care about the opinions of nonetheless, to not hate me. To not see me as the enemy when I spoke about these things, and to not make Studio Investigrave label me as a heathen. I know how cruel the internet is, and how people act when they think they have all the answers, or want to protect something close to them. These are the feelings I get so tangled in when thinking about Dead Play, and it's because it resonates so well with what I see when I look at Dead Play. This feeling of needing to be pure. For the uninitiated, Dead Play is a 2023 horror restaurant tycoon game made in RPG Maker by Studio Investigrave. You play as Roddy, a hospitality graduate that's worked in over 20 restaurants and has just started a new job at a bistro. He only plans to work there for a week so he can make enough money to take his ex-girlfriend on a date. This is hampered by the fact she mysteriously stopped taking his calls after they broke up, something that is definitely unrelated to his flat being filled with mold and the fact he hasn't been able to go get to his bathroom for God knows how long because it's flooded. He wasn't interested in doing anything about that though, because he'd rather spend his money taking his now ex-girlfriend on dates. She definitely wouldn't be more interested if he didn't smell like he'd shot himself. Said ex-girlfriend is Manon. She broke up with Roddy because he didn't take care of himself and spent all his money on her. Go ahead and get in the comments to let me know. Actually, Rachel Draws This has changed her mind and now says Roddy does take care of himself when he's in a relationship. I quite frankly don't think this counts as taking care of himself. This is just him trying to impress Manon. If he was taking care of himself, he might be able to wash his ass, which would probably impress her even more. Anyway, her only other character trait is Vince is her celebrity crush. Vince is a popular chef that inexplicably runs one bistro that serves like 16 people. This is good because he only felt like hiring one front of house staff to handle all the waiting and man the till, which is right beside the door, and I promise you, Roddy won't notice. And even if he did, he won't say anything because he had the same idea. But don't worry, Vince did hire 6 chefs to work under him, who can't make more than one serving of something at a time and only offer a set menu with no alternative options. Also, they don't have a kitchen porter, so that's Roddy's job too. Jeez, I wonder why Vince isn't a Michelin star chef. I mean, you have one waiter and he smells like little shit. Listen, I've worked in restaurants, I've been a waiter, I know it's not uncommon for them to fuck you over and make your life a living hell. But he smells like... Vince doesn't have a sense of taste. He hired Roddy not because he thinks he's cute, and presumably those taste issues affect his sense of smell too. And Vince is gay and thinks he has a chance. Good news, Roddy is bi. Bad news, he doesn't know it, and he's definitely not attracted to Vince. To exemplify this lack of interest, Roddy immediately starts having dreams of Vince eating him. This is a common effect of working in hospitality, source, dude, trust me, and it's happened with everyone Roddy has ever worked for. Or maybe it's an ominous premonition because Roddy is psychic, or he got bad vibes or something. This is of course foreshadowing for the fact Vince will kill / has killed Manon and plans to serve her to Roddy at the end of the week. He also wants to eat Roddy because he's convinced Roddy will be the one thing he's actually able to taste. I do want to emphasise though, Vince isn't a cannibal. Or at least, he never ate one prior to eating Roddy's ear. Vince is just a normal chef. Everything he does in the game prior to the true ending route is just normal chef behaviour. I've never worked in a kitchen where the head chef wasn't actively trying to kill the sous chef or the waitstaff. That's just how kitchens are. Vince does assault a chef who subsequently disappears, but it's later revealed that Vince just fired him. He does serve Roddy a dead rat at one point, but I'm not going to say the average chef wouldn't do that. Roddy alone is what brought about this overwhelming desire in Vince. Nothing has ever brought this sort of desire out before, and he just can't seem to help himself. Something about Roddy makes him want to pursue him, to consume him, and believe that doing so will be what he has always needed. But Roddy doesn't return any feelings for Vince. Vince, like many queer villains, is a gay man pursuing an uninterested hero. Part of the horror of Deadplay is the fact Roddy is presumably being pursued by someone who he isn't attracted to. The horror of being hit on by someone you're not attracted to has been prevalent in media, but the queer villain is one of the most prominent cases. When a male character is persistently pursuing a female character, it's typically accepted as romantic. When a female character the narrative deems unattractive is interested in a male character, it's a joke. When an attractive female character is interested in the uninterested male character, it can vary from sweet to tragic. But when a male character is interested in a male character that isn't interested, that's scary and, well, queer. Since we know Roddy isn't attracted to Vince, we know his feelings to be purely those that form that rejection. Roddy doesn't like Vince. Vince existing in his space disgusts him. He won't eat the food Vince cooks for him. He has nightmares about Vince, even without knowing Vince is interested in him. Nightmares of Vince partaking in sins of his flesh. He even insults Vince's decor for being too extravagant, too unusual, too unpractical, for being too different from everyone else's. Roddy, despite being bi, is homophobic. Even if Vince is most innocent, when he hasn't given any suggestion he's killed anyone and has made no attempts to pursue him, he scares Roddy. While Roddy isn't straight, he still embodies the cis-het male fear of a gay man being interested in him. But Vince is disgusting, and Roddy is right to be disgusted. At least so the narrative says. After all, Roddy is completely right about Vince. This is the man that killed his girlfriend and wants to eat him. He is the monstrous villain of a cannibal that, in the end, can only be served the comeuppance for his actions. There is no hand to extend to Vince. He is simply the villain of Roddy's story. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with queer villains. Some of my best friends are queer villains and I support them. However, I think it's worth examining Vince on a larger scale. I don't know where Studio Investigrave are based or where their members are from. I know they've attended a convention in Canada, so I am going to assume that they are most likely based in North America. Even if Studio Investigrave are Canadian, it's worth considering the culture of America in their context due to the wide distribution of American media to English-speaking countries and the proximity. While censorship and queerphobia are by no means exclusive to North America, it is interesting to look at the way US American culture affects its media. One notorious example is, of course, the Motion Picture Production Code, more commonly referred to as the Hays Code. The Hays Code was created by Will Hays, a Presbyterian clergyman, in 1930. While the code wasn't laws, they both encouraged self-censorship and were promoted by film and television studios to the point they had to be followed. One rule in the code banned what was considered sexual perversions, which included homosexuality. Now, these rules aren't the source of every queer villain in media, though they are often cited for those that appear in film and TV at the time. John Weir describes Norman Miller, a queer writer in the 40s, having believed there was an intrinsic relationship between homosexuality and quote-unquote evil, and depictions of queer cannibalism can be found in the 1800s. With queerness already being a crime, it was easy to make the connection that one crime would beget more crimes, that one kiss would lead to murder. And so it only makes sense that these criminals would become villains. The way the Hays Code could have affected this is by removing the other options. While most saw queer people in a poor light, there were people interested in making queer positive films, but without the seal of approval from the Motion Picture Association of America, it was harder to have the necessary reach, even if they did make it into production. But the part of the Hays Code I really want to highlight is, no picture should lower the moral standards of those who see it. This line was interesting to me, mostly because it's a rhetoric that continues to exist, and I hear online every day, even though these rules were phased out over 50 years ago. These were rules brought in by a clergyman and were held over the USA as a belief all should adhere to. It was accepted because the US American culture is deeply Christian, something that hasn't truly gone away. Even if the amount of people attending church has decreased, the new generation are still learning their morality from their parents, their teachers, their community, and from the media they consume.
Aha, so it is important to keep moral because that's what people learn from.
That's not what I'm saying, and I won't, because studies on the subject have severe bias issues due to the sources of their funding and how they conduct their research. It's a thing you can get into. This isn't about how you learn what is right or wrong. This is about how we learn to react to morality. The Hays Code promoted self-censorship, but that also involved the censorship of others, including works coming from outside the USA. This is reflective of how people online today interact with these creators that they have easy access to. People ask for verification on their theories, for the creator to condemn a certain reading, for the creator to affirm all their beliefs and depose any they dislike. This creates a situation for creators where they feel they must answer these questions or fear their silence will turn the audience against them. They may answer truthfully. After all, they may be as affirmed in their beliefs as the audience. As such, I take all answers from Rachel as the author's intent. When it comes to creating media, if you've been raised in this mindset where you must uphold certain morality and disregard their moral, it can affect your approach to writing. So let's make our Cannibal the good and moral style. Now, eating people is wrong. We don't want anyone getting the wrong idea about that. It's important we don't glamorize action. So, how can we achieve this? Well, firstly, our protagonists can't find it attractive. Let's push that just a little further and make them actively disgusted by it. If we want people to know this is a villain undeserving of sympathy, we may need to make sure the other characters don't sympathise with them and that their bad deeds are punished. Probably best to just kill them and do good endings. That seems pretty indisputable as a punishment. Well, now we need to give him relationships to other characters. He's gay. Oh, my best friends are gay cannibals. And he has a crush on the protagonist. Wait. If we do that, people may ignore all the bad things he did and ship him with the protagonist. Don't worry, I got the perfect solution to this. Hey guys, everyone listen up. Their relationship is toxic, and you need to remember that when shipping them. I don't resent Rachel for this response. I truly believe she didn't want to glorify abusive relationship. Someone out there is desperate to mention it. Don't worry, I will. And I think it's good for creators to brush these kinds of comments off with the insistence that fandom can do what it wants with the text. I understand this may be a very liberal interpretation of his words, but let's let it be. I can't say I don't ship Roddy and Vince, but I don't ship the version of them Studio Investigrave created. I've queer theorized them into my own fanalized version to the point I would say the deadplay I'd have created would hold no resemblance to the original. Yeah, I think about this insistence so much. Pairing this with a recent comment in the Discord that called Vince's love bitter. Roddy is bi, but he doesn't know it. Vince is gay and queer. His tastes are unconventional, literally and figuratively. He likes art. He has a fancy bathtub that Roddy is repulsed at the sight of. When you talk to Vince and look around his home, it's hard to miss the signs of his identity and how he doesn't conform with the cisgender, heterosexual, able-bodied expectations of a man. And what he gets in return is for his love to be treated as something bitter, toxic, and unworthy of understanding. Vince is killed for being the other. There is no place for a queer man in the society our hero seeks to protect. So let's look at a different game. Spoilers for ZENO from here on out. ZENO is a Japanese RPG Maker horror game, though in a more genre-typical way. Our main characters are Tsugino and Mayano, who wake up in a locked room in an underground medical research facility and have lost their memories. Mayano was a researcher/doctor at the facility, while Tsugino was a serial killer and cannibal. Tsugino was suspected of having a mental health condition that the facility was trying to cure, which had caused him to kill the guys he liked and eat them in pursuit of proof of their love. Mayano and Tsugino developed an inappropriate relationship while he was in the facility, leading to Tsugino attacking Mayano, wanting to be loved by him. They were found out and separated before having their memories wiped. The interesting thing with ZENO is Mayano's refusal to condemn Tsugino. When he was his doctor and he knew all the crimes Tsugino had committed, he still pursued him. When Tsugino attacked him, he snuck down to Tsugino's cell to talk to him for the bars. When Tsugino relapses, even without his memory, Mayano wants to save him, going as far as letting Tsugino eat him. With his memories and knowing how Tsugino's ideal of love was formed, he offers understanding, and when Tsugino admits his ideal of love hasn't changed after being cured, that as long as he loves Mayano, he will want to eat him, and seeing Mayano's willingness to be eaten as proof of his love, Mayano accepts that is who Tsugino is, and he loves him. While ZENO arguably has a more romantic relationship between the two leads, it still has room for interpretation, but the fact remains that some of the more heartfelt endings come from Mayano not treating Tsugino as a monster. Tsugino is gay. His way of expressing his love is queer and shocking to some, but at the very least, it is unconventional. It's not something he can change about himself because it is what makes him who he is. Mino can love the Sukehiro that forgot, but he loves this one too. The game makes a point that Sukehiro's feelings can all coexist, that he can want to spend his life with Mino and want to eat him, and he's still worthy of love. ZENO doesn't shy away from loving Sukehiro. All his messy parts are a part of someone Mino loves. Even when Sukehiro is trying to kill Mino is only scared of dying. He wants to save Sukehiro even during those moments, and the game will punish the player if they try to abandon him. Regardless of if you believe Mino returns Sukehiro's feelings, he's not scared of them. He'll accept Sukehiro loves him and still see him as his friend. Roddy would never allow Vince to be his friend. He would never offer him the understanding Mino offers Sukehiro. What Vince does is abnormal, and so we mustn't forget the relationship is toxic, that Vince is toxic. All because what? We don't want to lower the morals of our audience. We don't want evil to be attractive, for people to be sympathetic to evil, for evil to be alluring, to be confused about who is good and who is evil, to question what is right and what is wrong. Except, wait a minute, what about Roddy's love? The first time I played Deadplate, I thought Roddy was a creep, and if left to it, would eventually just turn into a stalker. This was what made Roddy and Vince's dynamic interesting to me. Vince was a cannibal, the kind of person you could never expect to actually encounter, but Roddy was a much more mundane type of monster. Manon left him, but he pursued her. She told him no, but he calls her every day. He refused to listen to a woman he claimed to love, forcing himself back into her life, forcing himself on her. And I thought that was how everyone saw Roddy. But then I kept thinking about the game and realised nothing suggests Roddy is doing anything wrong. Roddy's attempts to pursue Manon were the line that could have saved her. We are meant to suspect something has happened to her for her to not answer his calls, which I had taken as her not wanting to talk to her clingy ex. In a game that gives mundane answers to so many things, Manon isn't allowed to just be avoiding Roddy because he's making her uncomfortable. Roddy is the hero that could have saved her. When he fails, it's a tragedy, the broken hero carrying what remains of his true love away as he gets revenge on the one that killed her. Roddy's love for Manon is treated as pure and puppy-like, filled with sweet romantic gestures from the heart like writing her love songs and spending every penny he has on dates with her. While Rachel has acknowledged Roddy's love is obsessive, it is still used in juxtaposition with Vince's toxic, bitter love for Roddy. Despite how Roddy's love is toxic, no emphasis is ever put on depicting it as such. As a society, Roddy's kind of love is romanticised in a way that Vince's isn't. Studio Investigrave, accidentally or not, upheld the status quo, and so Roddy's love is accepted, while Vince's is dismissed. I need to make it clear, I don't think Rachel is homophobic. I think Rachel and the rest of Studio Investigrave live in a society and an internet space shaped by Christian values and conformity. Judgment will be cast upon the abnormal, the immoral, and the queer. Vince can't be offered the understanding Sukehiro was because all eyes are on Studio Investigrave, begging on the steps for answers to their questions, for them to say something concrete, to be God of their creation that ousts the sinners that invoke death with the offer. And God must be good and moral and just. Because if you don't believe your actions are just, how can you love with people following your guidance? It's a position that affects some more than others. Some writers stand by what they want to make and can cast aside the wider morals of society to say what they want to say. Some have been so shaped by it that they can accept the monsters in such a way. While they may be accepting in theory, the context they grew up with colours their writing with the biases they are yet to cast off. And so, what Deadplate has to say is, reject the monster. Hold no feelings for him. He is irredeemable, for his love is queer. Roddy doesn't believe there's a better person in there. There's no one worth saving. No one who can be better. There's nothing to suggest he's wrong. There's no cure for Vince, and we won't accept him as he is. We can't accept how he expresses his love. It is bitter and twisted. He can't have what Sukehiro has.